Hey, this is Adrian Igo, Capricorntigress with Astrology, a look inside, coming to you with your astrology reading for October 2018. And happy Halloween, everyone. I'm wearing my dark hair, my Halloween look. And so with this, I usually have the light hair because I always feel like it's too stark when I have the dark hair, but I do like it. And so I think it's perfect. And happy Halloween season to everyone out there. So this month is going to be a very interesting month for you, Aries. We're going to start the month out a little stressful. You know, in the beginning of the month, we're going to have the sun square the moon. And actually the moon is going to be down in Gemini on the 1st of October, but on the 2nd the sun squares the moon, and so that's going to cause a little bit of minor stress, and that's really going to affect the area of like maybe some communications for you guys, and could affect like family members or your neighborhood or something like that. So you'll go into the month a little, you know, with a little bit funky like that, you know, so be aware of that in the beginning of October. On the 3rd of October, Mercury squares Pluto, and that can give some real strong obsessive opinions about things, you know, because, you know, Pluto and Mercury, it makes it where you really want to tell your side of the story. The funny thing about this is that in the month, Mercury is going to be going, it starts out in Libra, and it's going to end up in Sagittarius by the time November 1st rolls around. But, you know, this is going to be happening in Libra. So, and of course with Pluto being in Capricorn, this area of your chart, though, is really kind of the area where, you know, partnerships, enemies could occur. And it just could be some arguments that you have with other people and something to do with your career, perhaps, because Pluto is up in your 10th house, or your solar 10th house anyway, right now. And so, you know, you got Saturn up there in that solar 10th house and Pluto up there in that solar 10th house. So you could be feeling some of that with the career that day, with Mercury square Pluto. And it's kind of that weird vibe that's going between that 7th house and that 10th house. So I would be aware of that early in the month. On the 5th of October, there is a Venus retrograde. And so that could also indicate some possible love troubles. That happens around, that happens in Scorpio because it retrogrades at 6:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Pacific Time, and it happens at 10 degrees of Scorpio. It's retrograde. It's just not a good time to start a relationship or anything when Scorpio, you know, Venus goes retrograde in Scorpio at 10 degrees, and that's, you know, amazingly that's going to be in your solar 8th house, so that could affect that area of your life, which is deep hidden secrets and your money, or actually resources, more resources. So let me just go ahead and look here at this here, because I had written a chart, and I'm actually trying to look at this, what I wrote versus the notes that I have in front of me up here. And they're vastly different, you know, when I'm looking up here. So what I'll do is I'll go over the chart that I created first, and then I'll go through with the rest of the astrological events at the end, because otherwise it does tend to get a little bit confusing, I think, anyway. But if I just look here at the chart that I drew, I can see that you might have some issues with some possible just something weird might happen with the area of your finances, or something like that. That could happen early on in the month. But there is, and also your relationships. There's a retrograding Uranus in your solar second house, and also the North Node is in the fifth house. Has been for a while, and it's almost out of the fifth house. It's going down to 0 degrees of Leo, so that should be taken care of pretty sure soon. In the month, though, there's a lot of emphasis here that is on your solar seventh house, because it is October. It's the month of Libra, which is your solar seventh house, and the month starts out, as I mentioned earlier. The Mercury's going to be in Libra. There's going to be, of course, the Sun in Libra, and then it goes. Mercury goes into Scorpio, and it ends up in Sag by November. But yeah, so there's some emphasis there in the seventh house, and also in the eighth house, because there's a lot of Scorpio. Because once the Sun enters Scorpio on the 23rd, all the emphasis will go from the seventh house to the eighth house. So that's where a lot of emphasis is here for you. I'm just looking at this. I think why I'm just going so slow is I'm looking at how it's almost like you have like a seesaw chart here. There's a little bit of emphasis over there in the seventh and eighth house, and then really the rest of the emphasis is all over on the other side in Aquarius and Pisces, and a little bit in Capricorn. So okay, so you've got some emphasis in the career this month, and actually you could be very powerful in the area of your career, because Pluto is still there. And yeah, it's a little intense and it's a little secretive, and I think there's going to be a lot of intensity and secretive things going on in the month of October. But I do think that you can make some forward progress, because at least Saturn's not retrograde anymore. Pluto's not retrograde anymore. Things are going to move forward in your career, and that's a good thing. You don't have anything retrograding in your sixth house right now. That's good. As I mentioned, now Uranus is at the early degrees, like 0 degrees of Uranus. I think it actually goes from 1 degree to 0 degree Uranus, or something to that effect, in your first house or second house, or solar second house anyway. But the thing that concerns me is there is the the Pisces emphasis this month, because Neptune is in Pisces, and that's at between 13 and 14 degrees of Pisces in your solar 12th house, and also Chiron is retrograded into Pisces this month, and so that's going to be at those late degrees of Pisces, 29, 28 degrees of Pisces, because it's constantly retrograding. But Chiron is going to be there in your 12th house. That gives you an opportunity to maybe heal some things there, especially with Neptune. You should be feeling fairly creative there. I've noticed too that Lilith is in your solar 11th house, and so is Mars. They're in Aquarius this month, and so I'm wondering if there's going to be, oh man, that could spell some trouble. I just don't want to say it. I mean, I'm just thinking, that is when Lilith is in there messing with your friends and the group situation. Anything is possible with Mars there, so be aware, especially like if you're on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. There could be enemies out there. There could be people out there talking about you and stuff like that. Just be cautious of that kind of vibe that's going on with those kind of planets floating around. So let's go back now to the astrological events. I just wanted to go through and just see where that vibe was with the actual chart that I drew up for you. So on we were at October 5th with the Venus retrograde when I left off, because of that indicated some possible trouble, and that all happens up around your solar 8th house and stuff like that. So yeah, it could indicate some possible trouble in relationships, and you shouldn't start a relationship when Venus is retrograde anyway. It's just not a good time. Also on the 7th of October, let me just expand this. I can see what I put, because I try to make notes before I come on so I don't get lost. But on the 7th of October, the sun is quincunx the node, and that happens at 11:06 a.m., 1:06 p.m. Saturn is at 3 degrees of Capricorn, and the Leo North Node is at 3 degrees in 20 seconds, and that's retrograding. And so you're going to feel some of that emphasis, and that Capricorn and North Node emphasis is going to be from your career to your 5th house. So I'm wondering how that, if that's going to affect like your creativity and your career. Because the 5th house not only rules children, but it rules taking chances. If you're, since you're Aries, you could be an independent business owner. And that would affect someone who has an independent business, because the 5th house also rules entrepreneurship. So be aware of that Saturn quincunx, or inconjunct, it's easier to say, is happening that day. Now, usually that means some creativity. So I kind of like that. Because the 5th house is a creative house anyway. And so I could see someone really using that to their advantage at their job. Since it's your career, you could do something that's really creative, and it makes you stand out above the crowd because, well, it's the North Node's in Leo, very showy, flashy Leo. So something nice and flashy, pull your career in the right direction. You can see that happening. On the 8th, there is a new moon in Libra. Whoa, right in time for the new moon. Hey, if you do that on the 7th, the new moon, I bet you something awesome would happen. And that new moon is going to occur in Libra, which is your solar 7th house. That's, partnerships, business partnerships. I can see new business partnerships being formed. But also, it's going to put the emphasis on your partnerships in general. I mean, just other people in your life. And so I could see that really being highlighted for you now. You can work on your relationships. You can find your own center. You can balance your life. You can balance out your relationships with others. Libra is usually very diplomatic, very agreeable. It's time that you can arbitrate and mediate things. People tend to get along and be a little bit more pleasant, even if they don't mean to be pleasant. I mean, because Libra tends to smooth things over, to keep things, copacetic. They like things to keep it moving. They really don't want confrontation. So you can really take advantage of, all of the emphasis that will be in Libra at that time. This new moon in Libra while the sun is in Libra, that is awesome. And I would definitely take advantage of that. Now, on the 9th of October, Mercury enters Scorpio. And, that is going to signal like 3 weeks of deep introspection. I mean, you might be thinking, deeply about things, personal life. And just, maybe just in your case, since it's the 8th house, it could mean partnership. So you and your partner could be having deep conversations. You could be having deep conversations about money. That's for sure. But definitely I can see that occurring. And that's Mercury's going to stay in Scorpio for about 3 weeks, so be aware of that. On October 10th, Mars is square Venus, and that could cause relationship problems. So be aware of that as well. And on the 12th of October, the sun is, the sun in Libra is going to square Pluto in Capricorn. And so, again, more emphasis from that 7th house to that 10th house again. So we're looking at your other people, your partnerships, and your career or your reputation. This could be enemies messing with your reputation, but this could be that somehow you're dealing with partnerships or in some way, and that's affecting your career in some way. And so be aware of that. This is upon us right now, upon you. And it does possibly indicate some power struggles with authority figures, because the 10th house is usually authority figures. Now, you could be the authority figure, and it could be someone really not liking you for that because of the power that you have. So be aware of that as well. On October 15th, Mercury goes into Scorpio, and that's conjunct Venus in Scorpio. So there's going to be this really, you're just going to want to get to the heart of things, because, again, that Scorpio, that's more emphasis in your 8th house. And so I can see you're really trying to get to the heart of an issue with a relationship and just trying to fix things. I can see your investigative skills really coming to the fore on that day. So that could happen for sure. On the 19th, Mercury is trine Neptune and also square Mars. So communications are, although they can be really creative and positive in a way, there's going to be something kind of confusing about it, because it's Mercury trine Neptune, which is positive and creative, but then that square to the Mars. Anytime Mars is square Neptune, I'm thinking there's going to be some kind of confusion because someone said something and got on someone else's nerves. So be careful about using any kind of harsh words or getting angry out of the blue, or just someone might say that you came off harsh in the way you were talking or something like that. So be aware of that. It could happen that day. On the 23rd, the Sun enters Scorpio at 4:23 a.m. And again, that's more emphasis on that secretive 8th house for you. It's secretive, it's healing, it could be closure, dealing with your feelings, I always think about, just emotions and feelings and stuff like that. So that is the 23rd. Sun goes into Scorpio. And then the very next day, on the 24th, there's a full moon in Taurus. Full moon in Taurus. And that's going to be happening in your solar second house of money. And it's at 1 degree. So it's going to be affecting that Uranus that's down in that second house, which I started out talking about, that Uranus down in that second house. But this full moon is going to highlight that on the 24th, and some kind of completions or change or transformation is possible with your money. Now, it could be that it's like you finally hit the jackpot, whatever you were working on, or out of the blue, because Uranus is there in the full moon. I mean, anything is possible. Play the lotto that day, for sure. On the 26th, the Sun is in Scorpio, and it's conjunct Venus in Scorpio. And so there is going to be intense relationships, intensity in the relationship. You might even feel like you're in a relationship that can transform you. But, it may be that you're just so dissatisfied with the relationship, you're ready to make a change. On the 29th of October, the Sun in Scorpio is trine the moon in Cancer. And it's a time where endings, because, Cancer is your 4th house, your natal 4th house. And that's your house of endings. And that Scorpio is the 8th house. And so, I'm just wondering if you can get rid of whatever doesn't serve you anymore. That may not necessarily mean a relationship. It can mean anything that doesn't serve you anymore. And so I would use that day for that purpose. And that was the 29th. On the 30th, Mercury goes into Sagittarius at 9:39 p.m. And that's a time when big ideas can really take hold of you. You can be really creative and get these great ideas that you would otherwise never even think of. But, with Mercury and Sagittarius, big thoughts, big plans, big money, big bank, right? So now here's the thing. Saggies like to run. I mean, they like to do things fast. And, you might get this idea and run with it really quick and haven't gone over all the details, and it could be a little sloppy. So be aware of that. On the 31st, Venus leaves Scorpio. It's retrograding back into Libra, and on the 31st, it does enter Libra, Venus, and love becomes easier when it goes back into the Libra. It is easier when it's in Libra. We get a little respite. Okay, so it stays in the Libra until the 15th of November. I would take this time to fix the relationship issues. If you can, it's retrograding, so we can fix what we messed up over the course of the last few weeks. Okay. And finally, there's an opposition to Venus from Uranus on the 31st as well. It's a rough time for love, but I do think because, we went back into Libra, I think, to fix it. So take this opportunity between October 31st and the 15th of November to fix the relationship. Well, that's all I have for you, you Aries. Aries, there's so much Libra, I almost called you Libras. So much emphasis in your 7th house this month. Really, a lot. Okay, you will probably be working on your relationships. So I would take the month to do that. Okay, guys. Much love and much light to all you Aries. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you take a moment to stop by Astrology and look inside and subscribe. Okay, I'll talk to you in November. Have a good one. Bye.